Hello and welcome to another episode of Bravo Outsider Podcast. Joining me, as usual, is Dylan Ferguson. Dylan, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. It's going great. I've been sitting in the sun all day, so I'm just living a dream right now. I'm just going to be talking really slowly and just not hearing anything anybody says, I think.
Yeah, you're looking a little dehydrated. You need like a big water bottle like this. I just got that on Amazon. My wife absolutely hates it.
What do you do with it? What do you need that for?
Well, you don't. It's actually really impractical, but if I admit that now, it's like I'm admitting defeat.
Specifically, why did you buy it?
So that I would have a lot of water on me at any given time. I thought it would be more practical.
What given time are you using this for?
You always need to hydrate. You always need to hydrate.
Yeah, I stay hydrated, exactly. The voice you heard was Sandy Klowak joining us again, who has been filling in for Dylan. Sandy, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, and it's nice to actually finally be in the same universe as Dylan at the same time as him.
Yeah, it's nice for me too. This is a multiverse episode we're doing right now.
Yeah. Big time multiverse.
The kids love those.
But Dylan, you've been away. You've been working hard on an amazing podcast. I just listened to the first episode today, and it's fantastic. It's called The Devil You Don't. Do you want to give like just a little bit of a teaser about what it's about?
Yeah. First episode just came out Friday. It's going to be a 4-episode series, so pretty brief. It's kind of a history show, kind of a cryptozoology show. It's about the Jersey Devil, which is like a weird, creepy little guy that you find out in the Pine Barrens forest of New Jersey. But it's really about like 300 years of American history and like weird people and weird things in American history that have intersected and created this legend. And kind of about what we can learn, I think, about like what the creation of the modern world is through tracing little stories related to this weird little dude in the woods.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely fascinating. One of the things that you had mentioned in the intro to it was that how learning about like cryptids, it kind of necessitates learning about the region in which they are a part of, because they're so hyper local. That got me thinking about, you know, the Housewife franchises and how it's got a similar, maybe a little more subtle effect in that way, where anytime you're engaging with these shows, you are learning a bit about the region in which they take place. So I thought it would be a really fun discussion to have, talk a little bit about the geography and regional history and how that adds flavor to these shows. Did you find any sort of, maybe not parallels, but how do you see the regions that Housewives franchises take place? How do you see them colored by their locality?
Well, I will say that when I read an Atlantic article from 1859 where the writer W.F. Myers refers to the residents of the Pine Barrens as rats, that really made me gasp and clutch my pearls, because I know from Housewives that how horrible that is for the Italian New Jersey community.
Like, the truth is, Daniel called her a rat.
What?
There's a lot you could call us that we don't get offended in New Jersey. You could call us you could call us a mother. But rat is probably the number one thing that you don't want to call someone.
But I've said it before on the show. One of the things I do love about the Housewives shows is that you get these little windows, often just in passing, into regional specificity and just like little characteristics and traditions that are particular to specific areas. New Jersey has a lot of great stuff like that. When they pronounce mozzarella like mozzarella and stuff. There's some good stuff in Miami, when they're talking about the Botanica, which inspired me to go visit a Botanica back a million years ago when the show was a little baby. I think that was in 1996 when we were doing that episode.
Yeah.
But that's something that I love about these shows, because it's something that is rarely captured in like pure fiction. Like few screenwriters, I think, are going to like be able to muster enough specific regional details that instead of it just feeling like an obvious like handoff, like, oh, we're in Chicago, the pizza's deep, that will feel like genuine little that are genuine color, genuine shading that really just fill out the world and just give it a sense of reality. And I think when we talk about why reality TV feels more real, that's one of the kind of underrated aspects of it. Alongside, unscripted dialogue that can sound, rambling and weird, but more true to the way people actually talk, etc., is just what fills the world that they live in. Is all these specific traditions that are never quite captured by fictional depictions of the world that are so important to the way that we live. There's so much just random ephemera that makes up our cultural milieu. Some random restaurateur did something stupid on his grill, and now it's like an enshrined local tradition that like everybody has to eat this one weird fucked up thing. All these little specific things that's just the things that make the world feel so much more rich and colorful, and lived in and true. And that's I feel like an underrated aspect of what makes these shows so addictive to me, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that stood out to me while I was watching New York this week, or throughout this season actually, is how much the local geography really adds a lot of depth to these shows. Like watching this brand new cast kind of operate within New York, it's almost like watching a sculptor carving a map out of rock and seeing all these kind of landmarks and these famous neighborhoods be uncovered by these housewives as they're operating. Like um just this past episode of New York that we're watching, we hear Erin say that she doesn't like going above Canal Street, and
Right.
just
that
like
had to be
getting
racing to Google Maps. Where's Canal Street again? Gotta know what she's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, the upper limit of Tribeca, I think. All right, I got it. Okay. Yeah.
But just like seeing how these people and how they operate within these cities and their neighborhoods and their communities. We yes, there are a lot of inorganic pieces of Real Housewives and they're thrown together in inorganic situations, but still behind all of that, we still get to see them how they operate as people within these communities and these spaces and these the physical spaces that they operate in. We see that shine through, and it's really interesting to see how strong of a grasp that relationship has on people, how it influences the way that you work and act and live. We see that on such a small scale, like the neighborhoods of New York, and also on like a broad scale. Like it feels to me like there's like a distinct difference between East Coast and West Coast housewives. There's like kind of a tonal difference between them that is really it's really present, and that it mirrors the idea that I've got in my head of the East and West Coast of the United States. So I find that really interesting watching these shows.
Totally. And we talked in other episodes, Craig, about the suburban landscape and how that affects things. And that's really, on my mind. There's this richness, I've said many times, to New York and to, excuse me, New Jersey. Even though there is a suburban element to it, there's just this, like, I guess, cultural depth that, like Dylan was talking about. And in the California shows, like, it just feels empty. It's like this void, and it's like suburbs. There's not enough going on there. This idea of culture and heritage feels empty there too. And I don't know if, like, that's just sort of this narrative that we have of, it's kind of this neutral culture. I don't know. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, just thinking about the example that we're seeing this season where Taylor, who was previously on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, joined the cast of Orange County. If you were to typically see a housewife make an appearance on, a different franchise, it feels almost like an exchange student. Like there's a cultural exchange that happens there. I remember like when I first started watching Real Housewives, I think it was a Beverly Hills trip that went to New York, and like Bethenny made an appearance, and it was like, oh, worlds colliding, but this is still like really interesting, and it felt like a cultural exchange. Whereas, you know, Taylor going from Beverly Hills to Orange County doesn't have that same kind of weight to it. And I mean, yes, it's not as much of a geographic leap, but also I think, like you said, Sandy, the kind of the landscape of uh, suburban LA and maybe LA proper, there's just not a very distinct culture between the two. Even though Beverly Hills definitely is going for a more higher echelon of wealth than Orange County, it's still she doesn't feel very out of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think in Orange County in particular, I've described it as just white women in the void because
Yeah.
it's just such like a cultural, like empty, like liminal zone that they inhabit, which is one of the things I love about it. And I think it's comparing New York to OC is really interesting because in both cases, they're not shows that are really showcasing people who have strong regional traditions from the area they're in, right? It's in both cases there are people who come from other places who are there in most cases, right? Like maybe Erin is a real New Yorker or whatever, some of them are, but mostly it's people who come from outside and who end up there. And Orange County, it's the same thing, but you're on opposite ends of the spectrum in the sense that in Orange County, it's like a parking lot. It's a cultural void, where in New York, it has such a distinct cultural identity that it's like an impressive thing. Like wherever you come from, there's so much pressure to destroy your regional cultural identity once you arrive in New York, because the city itself imposes all these very precise definitions based on specific neighborhoods and specific codes and stuff like that. So I think it's really interesting to compare the two as like places where people from other parts of America have clustered. And in New York, there's like a punishing pressure almost to like to forget where you're from. In an Orange County, it'll be like, you have two women from the Midwest being like, oh, we both like ordered a cocktail and a Pepsi at the same time. That's such a Midwest thing. And clinging to these bizarre shreds of like a geographically located cultural heritage as like bits of flotsam in the middle of the ocean, like just grabbing onto anything as a life raft because they're just living in these vacuous McMansions with no culture anywhere in sight, no history, no sense of place.
Yeah, that's a really
It's
good
great.
point. I forgot about that one. That was, yeah. Do you guys relate to the shows you watch based on your experience with the locations? Because that's something I was thinking about. I've gushed about New York a lot to Craig, and I love it. So I'll watch anything that takes place there. I find that these shows can be a little bit like travel. You're getting that, as we're talking about, that experience to an extent. And I find that I relate to shows more where I've been there. I have a connection to the place, even if it's just as a tourist once or twice. But there's a few shows that come to mind, and there's a couple. There was Texicanas, and that was a Bravo one-off season, unfortunately, about women in San Antonio, Texas, that had Mexican heritage. So it was kind of culture based. That was the premise, which I thought was interesting, maybe a bit heavy handed, but at the same time, I think that's interesting, and I think it was cool. And they wove that into the stuff that was going on, which was also just regular drama. And there was also Mexican dynasties that took place in Mexico City, and was 3 families. It was a little goofy, but I really liked it. And those are both places I've been. San Antonio, very randomly for a work trip, and then we stayed and toured. But it really made me connect to the show, and I like the premise as well, that they were kind of leaning into that cultural aspect and showed some diversity, which is always nice. And I don't know. So I don't know if you guys have watched either of those or have thoughts on how you relate in that way.
Yeah, I've been to like very few actual housewife cities. Like I think I've been to New York I went on a work trip. But aside from that, I haven't really spent a lot of time in any of the housewife cities. So I think New York is probably the one that I've got the most kind of understanding of, and like grounding, but that doesn't come from my lived experience going there. It's mostly informed by the media that I watch, and it's interesting to see how different, the sort of real New York that I have been presented with on these shows is from the one that like I've seen portrayed in popular culture. Like there's definitely like clear parallels, but to see it on Real Housewives, it feels so much more like a living, working, organic city than anything that could be shown within a fictional presentation.
Yeah, most of these cities I'm entirely unfamiliar with. Like I'm definitely familiar with New York, but like I think like Craig, I'm mostly like referencing like Scorsese movies in my mind rather than like
Yeah.
personal memories. The one show where I do that with, I think, is probably Vanderpump Rules, because I do know LA a little bit, and I do think that show does actually have like a great sense of LA as a place in a way that Beverly Hills doesn't, because it's not like really in LA, but Vanderpump Rules kind of is. And there's definitely moments where like they go to a place where I've been to it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cool.
And I know like if I were there my whole trip, the only reason I'll go to LA again is to do like a Vanderpump Rules restaurant tour. So that's otherwise you won't see me there, but that would make it worth it for me. So place based, like it's these places. I mean, of course they own half the restaurants, but it's it would be really cool to just kind of walk the places they walk. I went to Florence really quick. Went to Florence, and all we did was go to all the places that Jersey Shore cast went to when they did their season there. Missed a lot of key museums, but we did some pizza places that they went to.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the international Housewives franchises that I've watched, which is only the Canadian ones, and how. So there is Real Housewives of Vancouver and Real Housewives of Toronto, and I feel like both of those did an okay job of capturing those cities, which are two cities that I'm a lot more familiar with than any of the American franchises. But still, I think that that's one of the things that is kind of lacking about those productions is there isn't the same sort of attention to detail in terms of capturing the space that they're in. It's kind of just take this format and cast people from that city, as opposed to actually try to like capture some of the regional not charm, but the regional flavor.
Yeah, I haven't seen those, but there was a lot of good regional flavor in that one where they had like hockey wives. That was a good show.
Oh, I haven't watched Hockey Wives. I should.
When you were saying that, I was thinking like, oh, which one have I seen? I've seen one of those. And then I remembered, oh no, it wasn't either of those. It was the Hockey Wives show that I watched.
You should definitely watch Real Housewives of Vancouver, though. It is very good. Real Housewives of Toronto, you can totally skip, because that one was a waste of time.
Yeah, that Vancouver got out of control.
Oh, go ahead.
Like it literally didn't it get canceled because it was too dangerous for them to be together or something? I remember hearing that. Anyway, it's intense.
Oh, what?
Yeah, there was restraining orders against each other. It was pretty wild.
Okay, I do want to see that now. If you could pick one Canadian city to do Real Housewives in, which one would you pick?
Oh, Montreal for sure.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I think it would be fun to do something like East Coast. Do like Halifax. Yeah, no, St. John's would be even better. Like just like really like thickly accented weirdos. Have like some like fish barons and I don't know, lobster catchers, like the richest lobster catcher's wife. I think that'd be fun.
I'm gonna vote for Regina.
Yeah, I think like
Regina.
Yeah, that'd be like Winnipeg. I'd feel like it's the worst match for a housewife city. Just there's not a high degree of wealth or glamour here. But I could see like a place like Calgary, which is a city
that makes total sense.
I hate Calgary as a city, but I could see it being a good fit for a housewife.
There's a lot of new wealth there, so it makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Did you guys have any other thoughts, or should we move into Real Housewives of New York?
I think we should get to the business.
All right. Yeah, let's get into it. This was an all right episode. I've been really enjoying Real Housewives of New York so far. I think that this was really mostly one of the episodes that we often see where they're laying the groundwork for an explosive fight that is still to come. But there was some fun moments here. Out of the gate, Sandy, what were your highlights here?
I thought there was a couple of cool moments where you really saw the wealth disparity. There was just a couple comments. Erin had those diamond earrings on, and it was $224,000, and she's like, "That's a down payment on a house." I'm like, "Well, that's also a house and a half in certain neighborhoods in our city." So just little things where you're like, "Wow." And I mean, I'm not shocked. I know like the market is crazy, especially in the States, et cetera. But it's just like, oh yeah. And similarly, Jessel's $62,000 a year for preschool was a bit of a jaw dropper. And I really, that was one of, yeah. So that was a conversation that was awesome between Jessel and her husband. I really enjoyed that. There was some comedic gold there where she asked him, "Are you on any boards other than your fried chicken committee?" Replies,
to be fair, the Street Food Association of New York sounds awesome. Even though New York's a shitty street food city, it does still sound awesome.
I thought that was so funny. It's lovely. I found the discussion about preschools kind of interesting to me as a parent who's just sort of gone through the stressful, never-ending saga of trying to find childcare for my kid. I'm definitely not paying $62K a year for it, but it was challenging to get daycare and decide about preschool, etc. So I kind of had this moment of like, oh, I can relate. And she said something about like, I did it all. My husband has no clue. And like, just sort of the gender division of labor there, I can relate to a little bit. But then of course, when she said the $62K, it kind of went out the window on relatability. So it was that juxtaposition was kind of interesting. And the status thing, because you've heard that before where it's like, I don't know where, but it's sort of in the cultural sort of understanding that like, where your kid goes to preschool like determines who your social circle is. I've definitely heard that on other shows somewhere. So that was kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, I've heard that before too. And so this scene, when I saw it, I was like, I always thought that was satire. Like I thought, I get, your elementary, your primary school, whatever, that being kind of a statusy thing. But even though I'm a parent that has a preschool age child, I just assume that when you see that kind of, you see a scene like that where someone's like, "Oh, we got to get into this fancy preschool." I always thought that was satire, and to see that actually be a legit thing where someone is contemplating spending $62,000 a year for
coloring.
Yeah, for coloring, as Pavitt puts it, it was really, really funny. It was shocking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like see Jessel's argument. Her argument isn't like what the kid's getting out of it. It's like who you're going to meet when you pick the kid up after.
Well, at first she kind of started with, "Oh, it's going to be amazing, and this is so important for their development," but it quickly streamed into the benefits
Tom
for her
Cruise's
about
kid is there.
meeting Tom Cruise, etc. So yeah, we'll see. That's a storyline that I'm not interested in. So that's kind of cool. And I love the party drama. As you said, Craig, it's kind of setting it up for something nice next episodes. We didn't quite get the follow through here, but love petty arguments about people's crappy parties. That's what I live for on these shows. That's why I'm here. So I don't need like, as I kind of went on last time I was on about, OC and this whole Shannon, like her relationship being destroyed. And it's like, I don't even really want something that high stakes. I don't actually need someone's relationship to be destroyed. I need someone's party to be like medium ruined by them overreacting to someone doing something like medium rude. That is where it's at. So, yeah.
Okay, the party did look fucking terrible though, right? Like that was so they're like in a bank with like galaxy lights on the walls. And then just listening to the worst wedding speeches you've ever heard in your life.
And like, why can't she have food? She's been already like totally flamed for not giving food at her last event. Like, have a lot of food, Erin. Come on.
did you really not at least have one tin of caviar and a tube of pretzels you could offer people?
It was a very disappointing dollar to fun ratio. It was
with all those sponsors behind it too. Where did their money go? Just on galaxy lights on the bank walls?
Yeah. I did appreciate that a girl's hair caught on fire.
I would have liked to have gotten better footage of that, but that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. They did their best with what they had, though. They really gave us the slow-mo, crappy footage version of that, but wow.
Yeah, we got the infographic overlay. It was play-by-play with the X's. I thought that this was a really good party. Like you said, it had all the qualities that you want to see in terms of it being kind of shitty and being medium ruined, and just enough to piss someone off because they clearly spent a lot of money on something. And yeah, I think everyone kind of used it to their advantage. I was very happy to see Sai leave early without saying goodbye to Erin. She has really been the one member of this cast so far that I feel has not really found a groove or really brought much to the table for me. But now I feel like seeing her have this pattern of being a little bit entitled and piecing out early and hypocritical, I'm kind of buying Sai a little bit more. I think that this was a little bit better of an episode for her in my books in terms of what I'm looking for in a housewife. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for me, the standout for this episode was still Jessel. I think, I don't know. I feel like she is giving a lot more than I was expecting out of her off of the premiere and the early episodes. I think, we didn't see Jessel the villain so much this time. We saw her kind of at peace and still being, giving us an interesting personal story. We got her being kind of playful and building some dynamic with Brynn, and I was very impressed again with Jessel and what she's doing here. There was a moment where there was a scene between Brynn and Jessel at the stylist, and I liked how Jessel was kind of framed the peacemaking that she did with Erin in the past episode. And she was also just put it out there Erin's got a problem with Sai. Erin's got a problem with everyone. I think the common denominator is Erin, and kind of flipping that back onto her, but not in a way that was so outwardly aggressive that it's going to start something that it's going to give Brynn something that she can do something with if she wants to stir up shit. It's a piece of information that she can use later, but it's not something that is so big that she has to immediately run back to Erin, where otherwise she's going to be like, well, why didn't you bring that to me immediately? Right? That's it gives her a football to run with that she doesn't immediately need to hand off in order to make something happen. So I like this being put out there in the air, and I'm liking that things are kind of turning in on Erin, because she's another person that has kind of not been giving a lot, I think. So at least if she's able to be a fun target, that's going to add some fun for me with this cast.
I don't agree. I don't agree about Erin. I think she's doing a lot. I mean, she's throwing so many bad social events, never giving anyone food, getting really upset about everything everyone says about her. So I have to disagree on that one.
Yeah, she's making sure everybody's hangry at her events.
She's setting that up perfectly. I think Uba, as lovely as she is the least working housewife for me on this so far.
Heresy.
She does hate jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so fair enough. I respect that. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Like, I think Uba has been bringing kind of a fun factor. She's giving Sonia Morgan. Like, I feel like she's this cast Sonia, just kind of this very whimsical and injecting the fun, not necessarily causing a lot of drama, but making
That's
every
okay.
scene that she's in a lot of fun. Yeah.
You have to have that balance, so I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I still love her for her ethereal weirdness and just how she seems to have arrived on Earth a week ago, and I just love how everything about her is everything she says and does is just slightly bizarre. So I'm always gonna root for the weirdo. So.
And now that we know that she has a hot sauce, her tagline is a little less bad, right? Maybe. Is she the secret ingredient in her own hot sauce? I don't know. I was
Oh.
Yeah. I love the tagline, but mostly like I said, because it's straight down the middle. It has the word darling in it, like she's fucking Mae West in the 1930s. It is so classic. It's just like very straightforward, classic, old school.
It's true.
But yeah, you're right. It does make more sense now that I know that she's somewhat involved in the food industry.
Dylan, what were your highlights from this episode?
I'm also excited by the possibility of Jessel building an anti-Erin coalition. I would be there for that, and I want to see them turn on Erin, because I'm also a little tired of Erin. I find that she's just like her jokes aren't funny, and that there's she hasn't done anything like wrong yet, but there's just like kind of enough of like a whiff of entitlement and just being like kind of bland and unfunny that I'm just kind of not amused by her presence. And between like in the conflict between her and Jessel, I 110% agree with Jessel. Like, just like giving a slight like razzing to your friends is like what you should be doing, and I do think it's normally kind of bullshit when people are like, oh well, where I come from, that's not a big deal. But like it's fair that Jessel is English, and I don't know if you guys have any English friends, but that's what you do. English people are always constantly fucking insulting each other and calling each other fucking cunts and shit, and it's fun. That's how people should be. It's nice to insult your friends all the time, and if other people are too like humorless in their American way to enjoy it, well, that's kind of a them issue. So I do like the idea that Jessel is using this as a wedge to like try and get people on her side against Erin. I hope it develops along that path, because I would be even more team Jessel in that sense. I do want to start talking about this shitty party even more, because it was so, these speeches we got were so bad. When you think that those were the clips they chose to present you in the final cut, like how much shit were they slogging through? And the fact that Abe is using Grateful Dead lyrics, that is like the most cringe thing you could think of. Because seriously, like if it was like quoting like Harry Potter or like, I don't know, Transformers Rise of the Fallen or something, it would at least be like somewhat like nostalgic, age appropriate. But since when do they even make deadheads like under 60? When did that start even existing? Like, why are you a deadhead at your age? And it's just the weirdest thing. It's so bad. And and it's not even funny. He's saying like the blandest things, then being like, yeah, that's a Grateful Dead lyric. Yeah. Like and then Erin being like, yeah, I appreciate you so much, reading blatantly off her phone, but I mostly appreciate the coffee you put on my bedside in the morning. And then does it like fucking like smiling to the audience, like, isn't that a good one? Like, no, shut up. Jesus Christ. This is the worst. So yeah, I am. And that also made me appreciate Brynn's like very cheap and obvious flirting with everybody, which is something that's been kind of like annoying to me about Brynn. Not that she's like flirting with everybody, that's cool, but just like how like obvious she is, and like just how like simple and straightforward her flirting is. But I like it more in this episode. I'm trying to say nice things about Brynn. My dad told me I have to, but but it is really funny to go to like a really like lame party and then just be like, all right, I'm just gonna like hit on her brother and her husband who she's renewing vows with and her father if I can get him pinned down. Like that's a funny thing to do for me. So even if it's like very obvious, it's still like a funny play. So I respect that a lot.
Really.
Yeah, I love that she came in like kind of like half baked and like ready to make her own fun, like clearly planning for a bit of a boring party. Yeah, kudos to Brynn for that.
I also just another thing about Brynn, another thing that made me like her more was when like they're trying to like interrogate her about her like 3 engagements that she called off or whatever. And her response was like, it's easier to say yes. I was like, yeah, I understand that. I feel that. I feel like if somebody proposed to me that I didn't want to marry, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'll work my way out of this down the line. Yeah. I don't want to. I don't want to deal with this right now. So I'll just say yes, and we'll figure a way out further along the line. I could get that.
Totally, fair enough.
Yeah, I think we covered most of my highlights for this as well. Did you guys? Oh, one thing that I think I noticed was that was Jessel wearing the same like dress as Raquel was when she did her like Stadler and Waldorf routine on Vanderpump Rules. She had the big like puffy fringes. It looked very similar.
Wasn't Raquel wearing a pink thing? And wasn't
I
Jessel
know what you're talking about. It does. Now that you say that, it does. You know, when I saw Jessel in that, I was like, I think that's her like weird dressing gown. Please let it be her weird dressing gown. And then she showed up at the party with it. I was like, ooh, okay. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, Craig. So I guess it's a look. It's yeah,
it's very 2023. The year of the Scandival. We'll have to do a side-by-side on here of the graphics and see if it lines up. Right. I think that covers all of Real Housewives of New York. I do want to talk a little bit about the interview between Raquel and Bethenny on Bethenny's latest podcast. I had a chance to listen to all of it. Honestly, like, nothing really blew me away from this conversation. Just like my thoughts. I wasn't like scandalized by anything that she said. It was it mostly just kind of disappointed me. I feel like going onto Bethenny's podcast and Bethenny bringing Raquel on just feels like a little bit of poor judgment on both of their parts for cheapening their like angles, because I think, you know, Bethenny's got a whole bunch of people that just like hate her, and Raquel similarly does. And you know, I think that what they were trying to do was to do something productive, but the energy like that both of them are receiving is just like so negative when they're not put together. So when you bring them together, obviously it's going to be like a whirlwind of negativity. And yeah, it didn't feel like the right opportunity for kind of the positive things that Raquel is trying to do with, you know, bettering herself as a person and her like rehabilitating her image, and you know, with what Bethenny's trying to do with this this labor movement for reality TV stars. I get that there is like synergy there. I get that Raquel is a very like clear example of the type of person that needs protection, but it feels like there is maybe a better way that this could have been gone about. Yeah, that's just kind of like my immediate reaction. What did you guys think of this broadly, of what you've heard at least?
My reaction was very different from yours, I'll say. You definitely know more context than I do, as is usually the case. You have you read more deeply into the universe than I do. So I appreciate that. But me just listening to the podcast which I did today. I expected to like, go through a little bits, maybe hear some highlights. I was out for a long hike today, and I was like sitting on some rocks, and I was like listening to all the episodes. Like this is my meditation app, I was like, and I was emotional listening to it. Honestly, I found it emotional. I'm exactly in the wheelhouse for the audience for this. If there's two perspectives that I've endorsed multiple times on this show, it's workers' rights and the gospel of Orthodox Raquelism. And to have Rachel just describe everything in her own words without the Vanderpump Rules editing team piecing something together in the kitchen afterwards was I thought awesome for me to just like hear her speak. Not that a podcast isn't edited too, peek behind the emerald curtain, guys. But just to hear her directly speak and just like talk about how everything went through from her perspective, I thought was like was really great to just like get her side of everything on record, like fully fleshed out. Was like, I felt like that was just like what I needed to hear, what we're waiting to hear. And I thought that Bethenny actually did like a really good job of like being the mother figure, defending her. A little bit conspiratorial at times, Bethenny's perspective, true, but she is coming from a very a perspective of deep experience in that workplace environment, knows what she's talking about, and I respect that too. And I totally I totally support her drive to have more workers' protection for reality TV stars, and I do think that Rachel's case is a great example of why they need more protections. And hearing Rachel talk about things like how she discussed having like a mental health specialist on set, and how that was then like withdrawn from her, and the way that she asked, rightly I think, to have like some of her care reimbursed to come back for the new season, and had that request denied. I think the specific details about the way that Bravo isn't taking care of the stars who they're putting in like very difficult situations, very difficult mental, emotional situations. I thought that context was very useful, actually, and I thought seeing Rachel's story from that angle was very helpful, and I actually liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with Dylan. I think it was like cathartic, like you said, to hear her speak without, and the editing, but also the cast members just yelling and screaming insults at her. That like the reunion was not, I don't know, it was kind of uncomfortable, like the way she was abused, as they talked about on the podcast. And yeah, Bethenny was like an overly sympathetic interviewer, but Rachel deserves that. Rachel has gone through a lot. Rachel has made them a shit ton of money, as they're saying, and what has she gotten for it? Absolute abuse and mental health crisis. And it was nice to hear. And then some of those inside details, as Dylan said, that give a bit of context on, exactly what's going on here. And the exploitation. I think of her, and I think of Catherine on Southern Charm as the two people that are like, Catherine is like, brutal. Like her life was just destroyed by this industry, and it makes me feel a little icky thinking about that. So it's an important issue, and I'm sick of people screaming at her that she's subhuman. It's disgusting. And I'm like, the reaction to this podcast, what I have seen is everyone saying, she's lying and this is insane. But like, what are you actually angry at? That a woman has been literally given a chance to say her side of the story? Like, I'm sorry, how terrible. So
yeah, I think like when I say like it's poor judgment, I guess that's maybe strong or a poor choice of words, but in terms of what I was hoping for, I would have liked, I'm really hoping that both Rachel and Bethenny are able to make ground in what they're trying to do. And it feels like they are just constantly being attacked. And I really wish that both of them had, um, I feel like it was not the opportunity that either of them really deserved for this. Like, I think
fair.
in order to try to get people back on side, you need to like have a foundation for the platform that you're telling your story on needs to be one where there's a little bit more of a mutual trust. And I feel like, Bethenny has her own motivations in what she's doing. And, um, I think that those potentially are being used to undermine what Raquel is trying to accomplish by appearing on this podcast. Um, whether that's Bethenny or Rachel's intention by this endeavor, to this joint endeavor. I don't think that's the case. I think that just in terms of the reaction that we're seeing people use, Bethenny as a weapon to attack Rachel now, and vice versa. And that is really not helpful, for what both of them are trying to accomplish, which I think are things that I would really like to, see gain some ground. Um, but I did really appreciate getting to hear, Rachel speak very honestly. It's very hard, for me to adjust to calling her
Right.
Rachel, but so
after for a long time it was like what the haters called her, and now
Yeah.
it's the term she's embraced. So it's like it's hard to switch gears. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah.
And I was always shocked at that, at how everyone was so happy to like use a name she did not want, when in other contexts we all agree that is really not okay. But nope, for her, a subhuman, it was fine. That really pissed me off.
Yeah, totally. I think the way, one of the things that watching this unfold kind of brought back a lot of the emotions that I had while this scandal was unfolding on our screens, while Vanderpump Rules was airing and the reunions were airing. And there was all sorts of heightened emotion surrounding the situation because we were watching it take place each week, and that was kind of what was happening. But then, she went into a mental health facility, and she was gone for a very long time, and we haven't heard from her since. And now when she comes and is, trying to speak her truth about the situation, seeing this same hate kind of manifest itself online, it feels even more disgusting and outrageous now, because there isn't the same kind of on-screen weekly reminder and this heightened drama that is driving this hate engine to compel people to, use her as an outlet. Now it seems like just such pure malice, and we're seeing play out in front of us the very different way that Tom Sandoval and her are being treated, because we're seeing him in, fan selfies with cast hugging each other. And I know that people are saying that we have to smile for the camera or whatever, but it does seem like not a whole lot has changed for him, whereas Raquel has clearly been very negatively affected and is living the effects of this. And to see people still want to pile on her and not see that much hate, against Tom, it's really frustrating. Frustration is the emotion that it's bringing out of me when I'm going on Instagram ever since this podcast came out.
Totally. It's just pure, basic, classic misogyny at this point, the way she's being treated. And they even address that in the show, right? There's this whole thing about the mistress always gets treated worse, or the woman always gets it worse. But that clearly didn't sink in for anyone. I don't know. It's so frustrating to watch. Exactly.
Did you guys have any other thoughts on the podcast?
No, that's about it. I thought it was great listening. And you know what? Congrats to Bethenny for doing that. I think that was a good move for her.
Yeah, she said that she reached #1 podcast in the world with this interview at some point. Someone showed her at number 2 on the Apple charts.
Yeah, because obviously we're number 1.
Yeah.
How did you think she was going to get away with that?
Lies,
yeah.
Hey?
Yeah, it's us, and then Bethenny, Joe Rogan, then your podcast again, and yeah. But episode 2, you're gonna shoot up. I promise.
Oh yeah, Joe's going down.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been a really fun one. Sandy, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Corporeal Curios. Just search my name.
Awesome. Dylan, right away we're gonna play a little clip that you provided, a teaser for the Devil You Don't. Do you want to preface this with anything or let anyone know where they can look you up?
Yeah, I mean, look that up. I'm really proud of it. I'll say that, and I think, I hope you'll enjoy it. So the Devil You Don't, you can find that, where you're listening to this. Probably you can find it there. It'll be on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Don't expect to see my face there. I only do that here. But yeah, please listen. I would appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, it is a fantastic podcast. The episode that I've listened to. If you like listening to a podcast and then by the end of it you have like 12 Wikipedia tabs open, then this is a great podcast for you, because it's a lot of very interesting. It's an interesting historic story, and it's told in a really fun and engaging way. So we're gonna play that right now for you.
And now, something about Leeds' devil, I said to my friend. I will answer, I will tell you, replies Mr. B. There lived, in the year 1735, in the township of Burlington, a woman. Her name was Leeds, and she was shrewdly suspected of a little amateur witchcraft. Be that as it may, it is well established that one stormy, gusty night, when the wind was howling in turret and tree, Mother Leeds gave birth to a son, whose father could have been no other than the Prince of Darkness. No sooner did he see the light than he assumed the form of a fiend, with a horse's head, wings of a bat, and a serpent's tail. The first thought of the newborn Caliban was to fall foul of his mother, whom he scratched and bepommeled soundly, and then flew through the window out into the village, where he played the mischief generally. Little children he devoured, maidens he abused, young men he mauled and battered, and it was many days before a holy man succeeded in repeating the enchantment of Prospero. At length, however, Leeds' devil was laid, but only for 100 years. During an entire century, the memory of that awful monster was preserved, and as 1835 drew nigh, the denizens of Burlington and the Pines looked tremblingly for his rising. Since 1835, he has frequently been heard howling and screaming in the forest at night, to the terror of the rats in their lonely encampments. Nor, indeed, will you find many Jerseymen who will brave the supernatural terrors of the gloomy forest at night, unless secure in the strength of numbers.
I'm going to tell you a story about the Jersey Devil, but it's really a story about the creation of the United States of America and about the creation of the modern world, in the sense that it's about the tensions between our belief in undefinable mystic forces and our confidence in what science and rationalism can do. We'll meet people over the course of 300 plus years of history who tried to develop new, modern American perspectives and inadvertently birthed monsters from within the gaps and contradictions in their ideas. It's a story about, I think, how we all struggle together to define a world that continues to be stubbornly undefinable and beautifully undefinable.
Ever hear of something called the Jersey Devil?
Mulder, it's the same story I've heard since I was a kid. It's a folk tale, a myth.
I heard the same story when I was a kid, too. Funny thing is, I believed it.
that about does it for Bravo Outsider this week. Be sure to check out The Devil You Don't wherever you find podcasts. We're on Instagram, YouTube, Threads, X, TikTok at Bravo Outsider or something like that. Just Google it. BravoOutsider.com. Be sure to like and subscribe. Give us a rating. That helps us out a lot. Tell your friends about us. That helps us out even more. Until next week, keep on wiping.